Hey guys, it's Mrs. B again. The last video, this is going to be another pre-algebra video. We're going to be working with real world situations and percent proportion problems now. So what we're looking at is the last video we did laid it out for you. 75 is 30% of what number or something like that. You know, it's just very straightforward. Now we're going to look at real world situations and real world word problems, where it doesn't come straight out and say that. You've got to dig into the problem to figure out what you need and then set everything up, figure out what's the part, what's the whole, what's the percent, and what's the question actually asking for. So now we're going to do that. I'm going to start you so you can see what I'm working on. Here we go. So let's look at our first problem. Now, as a reminder for yourself, and I always recommend doing this, because we know we're working with percent proportion problems, to the side, write part over whole equals percent over 100. That tells me my key. That's my key. That's what my formula. That's what I'm going to use for all these problems. Now that I know that part, I need to look at the problem itself. It says a book collector has 425 books, 56% of which were published prior to 1900. How many books were published prior to 1900? So now what I've done, and this is the thing you need to do with every math word problem, you start out by finding the numbers in the problem, and the key information is around those numbers. It says 425 books. That's important. 56% were published prior to 19. That's important. How many were published? So now it says how many were published, okay, prior to 1900. Well, the first question is this the total number of books he has or part of what he has? Let's see. A book collector has 425 books. That's all the books he has. That's your whole. The 56% is our percent, and how many were published before 1900, that's your part. Okay? So now that we've identified all our parts, we're going to put them into our formula. I don't know how many were published prior to 1900, but I have a total of 425 books in my collection. And that is 56% of my collection. Now that I have my proportion set up, I can solve it. I'll start with my cross multiply. So now I have 100x equals a number that I need my calculator for, because that's a big number. So I got 425 times 56. That is going to give me 23,800. Now I need to know what that is for x, not 100x, but x. So I'm going to divide by 100. I'm going to use my really cool math trick and cancel out my zeros, and I get that x is 238. So 238 out of the books in my collection were printed prior to 1900. Now, I almost forgot to put something on the paper that's really important. And if we were in class, you'd see it because it's all, you know, we put it up in the room all the time. And that's our problem solving plan. Because every problem needs a problem solving plan. So as a reminder, what is our problem solving plan? The first thing we do is we mark it. We mark our key information in our problem. Then we pick it. We pick the formula or the property or the equation or whatever it is we're going to use to solve it. Then we fill it, which means we fill in the information we have. The information we found when we marked our problem. We fill it into we fill it into the formula that we've picked, and then we solve it. So every time we go through a word problem, this is what we start with. We mark it. What are my keys? We pick it. We figure out what formula, what problem, what thing we're using to solve this. We fill it in with our key information, and then we use the math to solve it. So let's do our next one. 12 of the 28 dogs in the shelter are purebred. What percent of the dogs are purebred? Now, so this one started a little different, but we still have the same idea. Went to the numbers first. 12 of the 28 dogs. So 12 means this is my part. 28 dogs total in the shelter, that's my whole. And they say what percent? So the what tells me what I'm looking for. So now I can fill in. I've marked everything I need. Already know I'm doing a percent proportion, so I've picked the formula I'm filling in. Now let's do this. My part is 12. My whole is 28. Is what percent? So x over 100. Now that I've got that, time to cross multiply. X times 28. 28x equals 12 times 100, that's 1,200. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 28. So I'm going to take 1,200 and I'm going to divide it by 28, and I'll get x equals 42.8571, on and on and on and on. But typically when we do percents, we only want one place past the decimal. So 0.857, which means it's going to round to 0.9. And because it says what percent, I'm just going to put my little percent mark there on the end. All right. So far, not bad. We've marked our key information. We've picked our formula. For all of these, we're all using the same formula. We filled it in and we've solved it using our proportional reasoning, which means cross multiply and divide. So now let's look at two more. Bethany uses 8% of her weekly salary or weekly paycheck for gas. She spent $34.12 on gas this last week. How much was her paycheck? So let's look at what we've got. We have a percent. Okay, she spends 8% of her weekly paycheck for gas. And we know how much she spent this week, $34.12. How much was her paycheck? So I have my percent. I have her gas. Is that her whole paycheck or part of her paycheck? It's part of her paycheck. So there's my part. And then her whole paycheck, there's my whole. So I have marked my key information. I have picked my formula. Now I'm going to fill it in. $34.12 is some part of her paycheck. And according to the formula, that should be 8% of her paycheck. So that gets us started. Now we're going to cross multiply. 8 times x and 34.12, so $34.12 times 100 is 3,412. Now I need to know what x is. So now is where the dividing comes in. Divide both sides by 8 to get the variable by itself. And in the calculator, be very careful. You have to type in 3412, then the division symbol, and then the 8. And I get that she was paid $426.5. Well, I'm talking about money. So I need my $ up front. Now, do I have just one place past the decimal with money or always two? You always have 2. So this is $426.50. Okay. Now, so far so good. They've given us everything we need. We don't have to think about anything. It's all just laid out in front of us. Well, let's look at this next problem. It says in Key West, it's sunny 75% of the days. How many days would you expect it to be sunny in the month of October? Round to the nearest day. Well, let's look at what it gives us. Okay, it's sunny 75% of the days. Okay, so there's my percent. How many days, so that's going to be my X, would you expect it to be sunny in the month of October? Well, if I'm talking about the month of October, this is my whole. But does it tell me how many days there are in October? It doesn't. It expects me to know that there are 31 days in October. So now we have our percent, our part, and our whole. We have marked our problem. We have already picked our formula. Part over whole equals percent over 100. And now we filled in our information. Time to solve. Cross multiply. X times 100 equals 75 times 31, which is 2,325 days. Okay, now we don't want 100 times X, we want X. So we divide by 100 and get that X is 23.25 days. Well, can you have 0.25 days? You can. It's like from midnight to 6 a.m. Okay. But is that what my question asks? It says round to the nearest day. So am I going to say 23 days or 24 days? Well, if you think about it, if you have $23.25, are you closer to having $23 or closer to having $24? You're closer to having $23. Okay, now, this is just like what we've just finished. The hardest part of all of this is pulling your information from the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave 2 problems right here for you. I want you to freeze your video, pause your video, and I want you to try these 2 problems. Once you've worked these 2 problems out on your paper, start the video again and you'll hear my explanation of the 2 problems, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and work on these 2 problems. Okay, here we go. First things first, mark your problem. On the high school football team, 62.5% of the players are juniors and seniors. If there are 11 juniors and 19 seniors on the team, find the total number of players. So I have my percent, I have my part, and I have my whole. Now, they got a little tricky with us because did they come out and say 30 kids on the team are seniors, or 30 kids on this team are juniors and seniors, or did they say 11 are juniors and 19 are seniors? They gave you the pieces, so what you have to do to find this part right here is you have to do 11 juniors plus 19 seniors equals how many upperclassmen? Well, 11 plus 19 is 30. So my part here is actually 30. 30 players out of a team of I don't know how many players, because that's my X right there, is equal to 62.5% of the entire team. So now that I have my problem set up, I'm going to cross multiply. 62.5x equals 3,000. Now I'm going to divide because I want to know how big the team actually is. So I'm going to divide both sides by 62.5. That's 3,000. And I'm going to get 48. So this is a team of 48 players. Sister's bed. So now let's look at the next problem. Jenna found that 15% of the Skittles in her bag of Skittles were purple. That's not enough purple Skittles in a bag of Skittles. If there were 60 Skittles in the bag, how many were not purple? Oh, well, this one asks the question a little differently, so let's look at it. This is my percent. It said there were 60 Skittles in the whole bag, so that's my whole. But my part's a little different this time because it said how many were not purple. So that means we got to think a little bit. If 15% are purple, then what percent is not purple? Well, let's think about it. 100% is all 60 Skittles in the bag. If you take out the 15% that are not purple, what percent of the Skittles are not purple? 85% of the Skittles are not purple. So that's my starting point. This is actually the percent I'm going to use in my problem. So how many of the 60 Skittles in the bag are not purple? Well, 85% of them are not purple. So now that we have our problem set up, we can solve it. Cross multiply first. 100x equals 60 times 85. That's 5,100. Now I need to find out how many Skittles, because you know there aren't 5,000 Skittles in that bag. I wish there were, but we're talking, party size. So we're going to divide by 100. And so 51 of the 60 Skittles in the bag are not purple. That is way too many not purple Skittles in that bag. All right, guys. So far, any questions? As you can see, each problem's a little different, but it still boils down to finding that key information, dropping it in the right part of your formula, and then just doing your cross multiply and divide. I'm going to put up 2 more problems. Once again, I want you to pause your video and work the 2 problems, and then come back and compare your work to mine. I want you to do 13 and 14 right here. Let me find 13 and 14 right here. All right, so let's look at 13. At North Shore High School, 87.5% of the teachers have master's degrees. If there are 128 teachers in the school, how many have master's degrees? Well, I'm going to give myself a reminder here. Part over whole equals percent over 100, because that's my formula I'm going to be using. Now, let's see. Here's my percent. It says there are 128 teachers in the building. So this is my whole. How many have their master's degrees? That's my part. So we fill in part over whole equals percent over 100. cross multiply. So 100x equals 128 times 87.5, and I get 11,200. Now I'm going to divide by 100. And this is really nice because dividing by 100 lets me take off those last two zeros. And there are 112 teachers in the building who have their master's degree. Being able to find those key pieces and pull them out and put them in the right part of the formula is the key to getting the problem right. So let's look at our last example here. Mara put down 7.5% on a purchase of her new home. If she put down $14,175, find the purchase price of her new home. Okay, so let's look at this. Here's my percent. Now I have to decide if this is my part or my whole. It says she put down, so this is the down payment. Is the down payment the cost of her house or just a portion of the cost of her house? It is a portion of the cost, so this is the part. And then the total purchase price is your whole. So now I do part over whole equals percent over 100. Cross multiply. So I have 7.5x equals 14175 times 100. So that's 14175 with two zeros. Now I'm going to divide by 7.5. So, because I want to know the cost of her house, not 7.5 times the cost of her house. And I get that her house cost $189,000, which is pretty reasonable for the cost of a house, depending on where you live. All right, so guys, go out there, talk to your parents. There are real world word problems like this everywhere you go. If you want more practice, you can go to Google, you can go to DuckDuckGo, and you can put in real world applications, percent proportion problems or percent proportion problems or word problems, and you can find stuff. Do it, try it, practice it. Okay, until next time, keep practicing.